We're going to head back in time today into the ruins of ancient Jerusalem. Because believe it or not, there's a blueprint hidden there, a 2,500-year-old strategy for building something that actually lasts.
So just for a second, what are you trying to build? Seriously, we're all builders, right? Maybe you're scaling a startup, or you're raising a family, crafting a career, maybe launching a ministry. Whatever it is, you're laying a foundation. But the big question is, are you actually starting in the right place? Well, the story in Ezra chapter 3 has a pretty shocking answer to that.
Okay, let's set the scene. You've got a small group of Jewish exiles who have just come back home to Jerusalem after decades away in Babylon. But home? It's a total disaster. The city is just rubble, their great temple is a pile of ash, and to make it worse, they're surrounded by enemies. So their first move should be something logical, something strategic, right? But it isn't. It's what I like to call the builder's paradox.
To really get how wild this is, you need a little context. Around 586 BC, their entire world just fell apart. They were dragged off into exile. Then, decades later, in 538 BC, you get this stunning decree from King Cyrus of Persia, who basically says, you can go home. And that brings us to our moment, 536 BC, where this tiny, vulnerable group is standing in the ruins of their capital, ready to start over from scratch.
Now, from any logical project management point of view, their first choice seems kind of insane. You'd expect them to build walls for protection, right? Or maybe start drafting blueprints for the new temple. But nope, their very first act before anything else is to build an altar. And here's the key. They didn't build this altar because they felt safe and secure. They built it because they were terrified. The scripture is so clear about this, despite their fear. For them, worship wasn't some luxury you get to when things are calm. It was their primary defense strategy, right in the middle of intense vulnerability. And this wasn't just a one-and-done thing. They immediately kicked off a constant rhythm of worship. We're talking daily sacrifices, morning and evening. They even celebrated the Festival of Tabernacles, which is a feast all about remembering how God provided for them in the wilderness. They were intentionally building a habit of gratitude and dependence before laying a single stone of their future temple.
So the question is, why? Why risk absolutely everything for this one structure? Well, the answer is buried deep inside the Hebrew language itself, and in what an altar truly represents.
So the Hebrew word for altar is mizbeach, but its root word, zavak, is intense. It means to slaughter or to sacrifice. So you see, an altar isn't just a pretty piece of religious furniture. It is fundamentally a place of execution. It's the place where our own personal agendas and our self-will are brought to die so that God's will can actually begin.
And this gets us to the core principle of this entire chapter. I call it the altar principle. Private surrender must always come before public building. Before they could ever hope to build God's house, each person had to bring themselves to that place of surrender. For us today, that mizbeach, it's the private place of prayer. It's where we surrender our day, our plans, our whole lives, before we ever try to build anything out in the world.
Okay, so with that private foundation of surrender now firmly in place, the public work could finally and safely begin. The community was finally ready to lay the foundation of the new temple.
And this thing became a massive, unified effort. They pooled all their resources to pay the craftsmen. They made a deal to get the legendary cedars from Lebanon, just like Solomon had done, and they appointed supervisors to oversee the work. And together, step by step, they laid the foundation of the Lord's house. And the second that foundation is laid, this extraordinary sound just erupts. It's the sound of two totally different emotions just colliding. The younger generation, the ones who had never seen the original temple, they let out this massive shout of pure joy. I mean, this is a new beginning. But then you have the older priests and leaders, the ones who remembered the incredible glory of Solomon's temple, and they wept. They wept aloud, because for them, this humble little foundation was just a painful reminder of everything that had been lost. The noise was so immense that you literally could not tell the difference between the cheering and the crying. And you know, this is such a profound picture of any big transition in life. Starting a business, a family, a new chapter, it's never just one emotion. It's almost always a messy, emotional mix of excitement for the future and grief for what you're leaving behind, all mingling together in one great indistinguishable roar. So this ancient story, it really forces us to turn the mirror on ourselves and inspect the architecture of our own lives. I mean, what foundation are we actually building on? Let's just use this metaphor for a second. The altar, that's your private life of surrender. It's your why. It's that secret daily time of connection with God. The temple, that's your public life. It's your career, your platform, your ministry, it's your what. And the story of Ezra 3 is a huge warning. If the temple is not built on the foundation of the altar, it simply will not last.
So I'm going to leave you with this final challenging question. Look at the architecture of your own life. Have you been so focused on building that public temple, your career, your reputation, your success, that you've completely neglected the private altar? The good news is, just like those exiles back in 536 BC, it is never too late to stop, to clear away the rubble, and to rebuild the one foundation that truly, truly matters.